Mixed martial arts in 2021. What did we learn about 2020? Let's go over a brief recap over what happened. 2020 brought about some weird times, not just weird times, but weird things. Early in the year, when news broke about Kobe Bryant passing away in the helicopter, I was really dumbfounded. It was confusing. I being from Southern California and watching the Lakers play and win championships, it was just a weird, I don't want to call it surreal moment when you find out that someone that, I mean, I wasn't a fan, but I definitely respected Kobe Bryant and what he brought to the table, his work ethic. He had that thing which a lot of fighters have, or most fighters, the top fighters have, is this will to just overcome and just work harder than everyone else to figure things out. So when that happened, that started out a little bit weird, and not only that, but I mean, the other family members that were involved in that, it was tough to think about. And then next came the coronavirus. First heard about this virus, that flu going around in China. Wasn't sure what it was all about. And then you kind of think, okay, this is something like from a few years ago with SARS or the H1N1. It's not going to come over here, or it's not that bad as far as jumping over continents. And then people started getting sick, and then people started going to the hospital. No one knew what it was initially, so there was this big freak out. Everyone was buying toilet paper in the hordes. People could, the lines, even the lines still today, the grocery stores are in LA. People have to wait before they go grocery shopping. It's just a weird time, and wearing masks, masking up, and people getting mad about wearing masks, other people not getting mad. And then with that, the school lockdowns, the job lockdowns, people losing their houses, people losing their homes, sports being shut down, the NBA being the first major one to shut down when the Utah Jazz, Rudy Gobert, tested positive and then transmitted it to some of his other teammates. So the NBA shut down. No one knew what was going on. And even the UFC shut down. MMA shut down for a little bit until they finally figured out, okay, what is this? Is it as bad as people say it is? And if not, how can we overcome this and go? So I don't want to get into all the ins and outs of the climate, the country, politics, none of that. Let's just talk about how this has affected mixed martial arts. And I will say that this pandemic, the lockdowns have actually helped MMA because the UFC was the first major organization to go. They went first. They started putting on shows. And that meant that everyone that was used to, accustomed to watching basketball or baseball or other sports had to find something else to watch that was live, that was green, that was up to date. They started watching UFC. And because Bellator wasn't even going at first, it was just the UFC. And that brought the views way up. If I was kind of tallying it up on YouTube and seeing where things used to be viewed, where I had an idea, a marker, and just seeing this influx coming so far up, it was crazy. It was just really crazy how far it has come just in the few months, because then people started watching, people started getting these interests, and then you had these fans that knew nothing about the old UFCs or what happened, to saying, hey, this is something that's kind of fun, that it's a two people going in there competing. It was competition. There's something about sports and competition that has so many correlations to life. The life correlations cannot be overstated or understated at that, because in life, people struggle. There's ups and downs. There's heroes. There's villains. There's same thing with sports. So when MMA, UFC was able to go, people saw that they can connect with it. There's a connection there. That's what all people want. They want some type of connection. How can I connect to this? And from there, the UFC has gone, once they started back up, every single week, which has just been, I know there's no fans in the crowds and the audience. There's no audience members there as far as fans paying to get in. But again, people have been able to watch it a lot more. The UFC 256, the last pay-per-view, the flyweights. Can you imagine if all the major sports had been going? So you had NBA, which would have wrapped up in June. They didn't start till later, and then they just wrapped up in October. And their preseason is starting right now, so it's kind of messed with that. Where their fan base has gone down. The NFL took some weeks to go. Their fan base has gone down. But then you had MMA where it's going. So you have these two flyweights where people have started watching at the beginning of the year, and now you have a much bigger audience because people have been tuning in. Then the flyweights put on an absolutely phenomenal match, which you can see one of my other videos to do a wrap up. But the scope of where it's at going into 2021, I know it's cliche to say the numbers have never been higher, the numbers have never been greater. But I mean, in this case, it's true. I mean, just look at what's happened. Why? I mean, there's a big why. Would MMA be where it's at right now as fast as it would have been had the pandemic not struck? I don't think so. People have been watching something else. They would have been watching what they were accustomed to. But now when you have this new demographic, this new audience, people are saying, hey, I need to tune in. I want to see what's going on. There's another fight night coming up this Saturday. And for all purposes, the UFC is just going to keep on going and ramping up their schedule. Yes, they've had some hiccups with some fighters testing positive for COVID, but there's nothing been anything detrimental. There's been no professional athletes or college athletes that have passed away from COVID. So we know now that it's not affecting the athletes as it does some with underlying conditions or those that are older. So where do we go from here? 2021, what will we see? Yes, we'll see the return of Conor McGregor. We'll see some other major fights probably without a crowd for a little bit, but I don't think that's going to take anything away from it. The audience does add something different. There's this energy there. And then boxing actually started going as of late. But I think UFC, they've definitely started to close that gap on those major boxing events. I mean, we haven't seen Canelo in all of 2020. Not yet. I mean, we'll see him coming up. Haven't seen those major marquee names because boxing is just different model where they need to have fans in order to generate revenue to pay the boxers, because those top tier boxers make way more than the top tier UFC fighters. So there's a different business model there. Boxing a little bit different. So UFC has been able to come up and really in a time where people want something, where they need something, and it's given them that thing, and it'll continue to do it as they go on. It's been hard on the fighters. It's been hard on some of the families and training and just all the different precautions and the different types of rules and regulations. But overall, I would say that if someone would have said a year ago, the country's going to be locked down, you're not going to be able to have a crowd or audience, and you're going to do okay, maybe better than you would have been, I think 99% of people would have disagreed. They would have said, there's no way we're going to be able to make money. There's no way this is going to work out. But in a morbid way, it has for mixed martial arts. And it'll definitely help out the fighters, which they're deservedly so. They deserve a boost up in everything, in their pay, in their insurance, in their 401k. They're independent contractors, so they don't get any of that. But hopefully, as they rise up their names, they can be able to get some of these things and be able to take care of their families in tough times. And I know there's some people saying, well, there's other people that are going to be homeless. There's people that are losing their houses or their apartments or their condos because they can't pay rent because they're not working. Like, I get that aspect of it, and not to downplay that at all, but there's also the fighters as well. So they're at least able to do that, and maybe in turn they can help out their communities. There are some fighters that do help out their communities, so hopefully that's what it is. The recap, we'll see what 2021 is like. Is it going to be different? I don't know. I don't. The vaccine is out. Is it going to change things up? I think it's still going to be locked down a little bit to some degree, and really, I don't foresee a full reopening or back to normal till 2022. I think there's another year coming where it's going to be people trying to figure things out. But the one thing that you'll have, or those fans will have, is mixed martial arts. They'll be able to see who's fighting, maybe start to like some of the fighters and become fans of some of them, start following them, and then make that connection there to take them away from what they're doing, and then hopefully maybe even help them get through what's going on in their lives. I mean, that there's nothing like being able to make that correlation into someone's own life, not just make the connection of watching them and watching it for a sport or for winners and losers, but to actually see how you can integrate, or that can be integrated in their lives, of overcoming obstacles, of being down and hurt and concussed and almost knocked out in the first round, second round, third round, fourth round, fifth round, and then coming back, or being bloodied up and losing and getting knocked out, but then coming back the next fight to have another battle, to see another day. And that's the one thing about fighting and boxing, which is like much different from any other sport. Like it's not like, hey, we're gonna punch out and get a paycheck. Like these men and women, they get in there and there's a chance that they don't come out. That's a reality of boxing and mixed martial arts. I mean, so if people are able to integrate that in their lives, we're like, okay, I'm going through tough times right now, but I'll be able to get out of here to make it to a brighter day or see tomorrow. Well, that's a reality. And to see, okay, fighting, it's much different, where that's not always a reality. Something can happen, something bad, which affects not only the fighter but their families, and it's happening ever since boxing and has come about, or combat sports. I mean, even football players have died. So knowing that they can overcome this and making those connections and being able to see that, yes, I will get to where I need to be, just take one step at a time. It's like training. It's kind of like jiu-jitsu. And I remember going my first day of jiu-jitsu, or even before I got into a jiu-jitsu gym, I thought, okay, I'm strong. I'll be able to overcome anything on the ground. And then feeling like a fish out of the water, or even my first time putting on a gi and rolling and learning. And you're like, okay, this is weird. Like I can't do certain things. And there's guys that are smaller than me that shouldn't be doing this because I'm way stronger. But then knowing that there's this overcoming, learning this technique, getting over this. How do I figure this out? It's like a puzzle. It's a puzzle. Mixed martial arts is like that. Jiu-jitsu is like that. Anything in that, wrestling is like that. Boxing is like that. Kickboxing is like that. Muay Thai is like that. Grappling is like that. Sambo is like that, where someone comes in and they start here, but they can get a little bit better, and then they're learning to overcome. I mean, isn't that what it's all about? Overcoming to figure it out.